Hey, so we are here in my new residence. A lot of you posted comments about my Nosy Landlord video, and to be honest with you, we don't really know where all the attention came from. I've had a YouTube account for probably as long as YouTube has been around, and I've never had any kind of attention other than just personal friends and whatnot. So I'd like to give some of you a little bit of a background on what exactly the situation was, and I think I offended a lot of people, and none of this was my intention. We did have a bad experience with Steve, and it didn't start out that way. It started out as a good experience. We lived there for 5 years, so we did tolerate quite a bit. Initially, when we rented the place, I was working in the neighborhood, and I met the lady Clarice, who lived across the street, and we were looking for a place because I was commuting a long way from work, and so she told us that the place across the street from her was going to be rented soon. The people were moving, and so she had given Steve my number. So Steve had called me up, and he told me how much the place was, and I said thank you, but no thank you. It was a little bit out of our price range. So later on that evening, Steve had called me and said, "Hey, look, I like the fact that you've been at your job for a long time, and your wife's a stay-at-home mom, and you seem like you got a nice family. I'd like to lower the rent to get you in there. And I said, "Oh, okay. Well, what does that entail?" And ironically enough, he said, "As long as you maintain the front and backyard, I'll get rid of the gardener and save you a little money." I said, "Okay, fair enough." So that happened, and we did that for many years. But as the drought thing happened, Steve really started to go a little nutso with the lawn. He would do weird things in the beginning, like take pictures of a weed and put it in my mailbox with a really nasty note about the lawn maintenance. And I work a lot, 6, sometimes 7 days a week, so when I get to it when I can, and maybe I'm not as diligent as he is, but he's a retired guy, and I'm just a working guy trying to scratch out a living. So in any case, we wanted to put an alarm. Well, we wanted to put cameras up because as time went by, we got the suspicion that there were some weird things happening while we weren't home, and so the moment I asked to put the cameras up, Steve got really weird about it, and he said, "Well, as long as you don't put any holes in the house, it's fine." He said, "But if you want, you could have an alarm put in." And I said, "Well, alarms gotta, they gotta drill holes as well." And he seemed to be okay with that, so it raised some red flags with me, and so I put the cameras up, and they were only up for a month before I got that footage, and before we moved out just a few weeks after the cameras were put up. So we had tolerated quite a bit. So full disclosure, I mean, we don't think that Steve is a pedophile. We thought it was weird that he followed us to our new residence. We moved out without notice. We just left. I got an attorney. Through my job, I have legal services, so they took care of all of it for me, and we benefited in several ways. We moved, and we got a little bit of money back. So in California, what Steve did was wrong, in spite of what a lot of you have commented and said, and there's been some really lopsided, nasty comments, and I try to put a lot of it in the back of my mind, but I feel like some of it needs to be addressed. So we do think that it was strange that Steve followed us. Since then, he has seen my wife around town, and there was one incident where he was harassing her a little bit on the road, but she was able to get rid of him. But he's just turned out to be a strange guy. He eventually sold the house, and so fortunately, he's not driving anybody crazy anymore, except for the neighbors. So in any case, the neighbors were all willing to back everything that we had said. He's the guy of the block. In any case, a lot of you have questions of how I put the cameras up, so I'm going to attempt to show you. I put the cameras up here for the obvious reasons, and I didn't mention it to the property management company, but later on they did find out the cameras were there, and they were delighted. So opposite effect. So anyway, I'm going to show you how I mounted these cameras out here. I didn't have a professional installation done, but I did with I was able to do it myself. So let's take a look at it, and I'll try to explain how I put the cameras up when I was up at Steve's house. So anyway, let's take a look outside. Okay, so first we have this, it's kind of a weird layout to this house. Let's go out to this balcony and I'll show you one of the cameras that we have up here. And so a lot of you asked what system we were using. We're using the, I don't know if you can see that, but it's the Night Owl system. And eventually all these wires run down behind the downspout. And so in any case, let's take a look out here in the front door. And as you can see, these are just mounted with the regular screws, and the wires run all up along underneath the eave here. And then what I did was I used the existing hooks that were in the house, and I just simply wire tied the wires to the Christmas light hooks, and I could still hang the Christmas lights, which I did this year. And that's pretty much it. So the way that it worked in the other house is between these two beams here, what I ended up doing was I cut a space. I cut a piece of plywood that fit between these two pieces of wood, slightly shorter, and then I cut some small shims. And so I had, if I, with the cameras attached to the piece of plywood stuck up here, pushed to one side, I had a little tiny bit of a gap here, about 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch, and I was able to get some small pieces of wood as shims and just tap them lightly with a hammer. And because they're wedged, it keeps the whole thing in compression, and you can pull on it and it won't move. It keeps it covered from the weather, and it worked out well, and it stayed there. It didn't move for the whole month that it was up there. And I had several other ideas that I was going to use to put the cameras up, but that was the way that I ended up doing, and that's what Steve was taking a picture of. The bad part about what he did is that we're going to take a look at one more camera down here, is he the bad part about what he did was that he usually gives us notice anytime he's going to come to the house, and so it was just not normal activity for what he'd done. He usually texts me, and I don't have any problem whether it's less than 24 hours notice or whatever. I was usually pretty lenient with him as far as him coming onto the property, as long as I knew he was going to be there. So when he did this on camera, it was just kind of weird. So in any case, all these wires, as I showed you earlier, I've got a lot of spiders around here, so people are going to comment on the spider webs, comment on all kinds of weird stuff you guys do. So the wires just come down the downspout, and I just tucked them up underneath this vent, and they all run inside. And then I'll even show you. I'll show you inside the garage here. So they end up coming inside the garage here, and the whole operation is, it's pretty neat. I'm able to I got a little TV monitor set up in here, my little man cave, and I'm able to check it all out, and like we can watch it from anywhere in the house, and as well as our phones. So it's a pretty, the installation is pretty clean, and from the outside, you're not really, there's nothing really noticeable about it. So in any case, I hope that answers a lot of questions about the installation and the cleanliness of it. And it's a pretty straightforward system that anybody can pretty much install themselves, and they're fairly inexpensive. So anyway, that's that.